The stars outside the window of the survey ship looked cold and distant. The ship named Aurora drifted at the edge of a dying system where the sun had already turned into a faint ghost. Most captains would never bring their crew here because there was nothing left, only broken rocks and silence. But Captain Ryan believed that silence often hid secrets. He had led his small crew into forgotten corners of space many times, and each time he found something that gave humanity a reason to move forward. The crew of the Aurora was not large. There were 7 people in total. Ryan was their leader, steady and calm, a man who spoke only when needed but whose words always carried weight. Beside him sat Myra, the linguist who loved to study strange symbols and languages of old civilizations. There was also Dallin, young and curious, often impatient to prove himself. The others were Lyra, the pilot with sharp eyes, Joran, the engineer, Sina, the medic, and Kira, who operated scanners and kept records of everything. For days they had traveled through empty space until the scanners picked up something unusual near a cracked asteroid drifting alone. The readings showed hollow spaces inside the rock, far too even and structured to be natural. It was a discovery that stirred excitement through the crew. Ryan gave the order to approach slowly, and the Aurora glided closer until the massive broken surface of the asteroid filled the windows. When the landing gear touched the uneven ground, the crew put on their suits and prepared for exploration. A small passage had been revealed where the asteroid had cracked apart. The passage was dark and silent, and the surface around it was coated with strange dust that shimmered faintly in the light of their helmets. "Looks like a doorway," Myra whispered through the comms. Ryan studied the opening. It did not look like any natural cave. The edges were too sharp, and the angles too deliberate. It seemed like someone long ago had carved a path into the rock. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. "We go inside," he said. The crew followed, their boots crunching softly against the stone. The air inside was thin but breathable. Joran tested it and confirmed they could remove their helmets, though the smell was dry and heavy like old earth. The passage led them downward, twisting deeper into the asteroid, until it opened into a vast chamber. The crew stopped in awe. Before them stretched a hall larger than any of them had imagined. The walls were covered in carvings, lines and shapes that told silent stories. What caught their eyes most was the light. Thin veins of gold-like metal ran through the stone, glowing faintly as though alive. The soft shine lit the chamber, throwing long shadows across the floor. But it was not the glowing veins alone that froze them in silence. Scattered across the floor lay bones. Hundreds of them. Some small, some large, some with strange shapes that no one could identify. Many were brittle and broken, but others looked as if they had been placed there carefully. Rows of skulls with elongated features rested against the walls as if they were part of some ritual arrangement. Sina's voice broke the silence. "This is a crypt." The word seemed to echo against the stone. Myra stepped closer to one of the walls, brushing her fingers against the carvings. The patterns were not random. They formed symbols, a language that she had never seen but could almost begin to understand. She pulled out her recorder and began taking notes. Meanwhile, Dallin crouched near one of the piles of bones. He reached out but did not touch. His voice was filled with both fear and wonder. "These aren't human. These are alien remains." Ryan's eyes moved across the chamber. He had seen ruins before, old ships, dead stations, but never something like this. A tomb hidden inside an asteroid, filled with both gold and bones. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. "No one has been here for a very long time," he said firmly. "We must be careful. This place is important." The crew split up to explore different sides of the chamber. Kira set up her scanner, which hummed as it mapped the walls and structures. The scanner revealed that the chamber was only the beginning. Tunnels branched out into deeper parts of the asteroid, leading to other rooms. Joran checked the gold veins, his tools confirming they carried strong energy, though he could not explain how such energy remained active after so long. As they worked, Myra continued studying the carvings. Her eyes widened as she began to recognize patterns. The symbols spoke of a people who worshipped the golden veins as the source of life. They had placed their dead in this chamber, believing their energy would join the golden light. It was both a tomb and a shrine. She spoke softly to Ryan, "This is not just a grave. It is a memory of their world." Ryan listened and nodded. He felt respect for the beings who had created this place. He ordered the crew not to disturb anything, only to study and record. But even as he gave the order, he saw Dallin staring at one of the walls where the gold shone brightest. The young man's eyes carried a hunger that Ryan had seen before, the hunger of discovery mixed with greed. Still, the captain trusted his words would hold the crew together. He reminded them, "We are guests here. Treat this place with honor." Hours passed as the Aurora crew worked carefully. They collected data, scanned the bones, and mapped the symbols. Yet beneath their calm actions, they all felt something strange. The chamber seemed alive. The golden veins pulsed faintly, like the slow heartbeat of the crypt itself. Sometimes the bones shifted slightly, though no wind touched them. The crew could not tell if it was imagination or something deeper. When they returned to the ship at last, each of them carried the weight of what they had seen. The crypt was not just a discovery. It was a message from the past, a place that demanded respect. Ryan stood at the window of the Aurora, looking back at the cracked asteroid. He knew this was only the beginning. The chamber was waiting, and the secrets of gold and bones were far from finished. The crew of the Aurora did not sleep well after their first visit to the crypt. Even though they were safe inside their ship, the image of the golden veins and the scattered bones lingered in their minds. Some of them dreamed of the glowing light pulsing like a living heart. Others dreamed of shadows moving among the skulls. Captain Ryan barely rested. He sat in his chair for long hours, staring at the asteroid outside, wondering what secrets it was keeping from them. By morning cycle, he called the crew together. His voice was steady, though his eyes showed he carried the same unease as the others. "We need to return," he said. "We cannot leave a discovery like this unfinished. But we must be careful. We record and learn, nothing more." The crew nodded, though not all of them felt the same. Dallin's mind still burned with the thought of the golden veins. To him, it was not just history. It was power, more valuable than any treasure. Myra, on the other hand, was filled with excitement of another kind. She had spent the night studying the symbols she recorded. She believed they could tell the story of the people who built the crypt. She wanted to uncover every word, every warning they had left behind. When they entered the chamber again, the silence welcomed them as before. The golden veins glowed faintly, guiding their path, and the bones lay untouched where they had seen them last. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt heavier, as though the crypt was watching their every move. Myra moved straight to the carvings on the walls. She traced her fingers gently across the symbols, whispering her thoughts as she tried to form meaning from them. "This is more than art," she said. "This is language. And not just words, it is warning." Ryan joined her side, scanning the wall with his helmet light. "What does it say?" She frowned, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "I cannot read it all, but I can see patterns. This symbol appears many times, always near the word for gold. It says something like, 'Do not disturb' or 'Do not break.' And this part," she pointed to another line where the symbols were arranged like a spiral. "It speaks of hunger, not of the body but of the soul." They feared something about the gold. The crew gathered near, listening in silence. Even Dallin paused in his wandering to hear her words. "So they left warnings," Lyra said softly. "Warnings for anyone who came after them." Joran shook his head. "Or maybe it is just ritual. Old words of a people long gone. Fear often finds its way into stories." But Ryan did not dismiss it so quickly. His instincts told him that the people who carved those words had left them for a reason. "We treat the warning as truth," he said firmly. "Until we understand more, we touch nothing." For a while the crew obeyed. They spread through the chamber with scanners and recorders. Kira mapped the floor, finding strange patterns in the placement of the bones. Sina studied the remains, noting differences in size and shape that suggested not one but many species had been buried here. It was as if the crypt had become a resting place for an entire collection of peoples. Yet the more they worked, the more the strange hum in the air grew. At first it was so faint that no one noticed. Then Myra stopped suddenly and lifted her head. "Do you hear that?" The others paused. Slowly, they began to hear it too. A low vibration, steady and constant, as if the walls themselves were singing in a voice too deep to understand. The golden veins pulsed in time with the sound. Dallin's eyes shone. "It is alive," he whispered. "No," Ryan said sharply. "It is warning us again." The hum grew louder the deeper they moved into the chamber. At one point, Myra stopped at another wall of symbols. She bent over quickly, sketching them down. Her face grew pale as she translated. "This line is clear," she said. Her voice trembled as she read. "It says, the gold feeds us, but the gold also binds us. Take only what is given, or the dead will rise." The crew froze. The bones around them suddenly felt heavier, closer, as though every empty skull was watching. Sina swallowed hard. "Do you think it is true?" Myra looked at the floor, her voice soft. "I think these people believed it. Whether it is true or not, I cannot say. But I do not think we should test it." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber again. Then Ryan nodded. "We continue with care. No one touches the gold. Not one shard, not one piece. We take knowledge only." But his order did not ease Dallin's hunger. The young man lingered near the brightest vein, staring at the golden light that seemed to call to him. He clenched his fists, torn between loyalty to his captain and the burning desire to claim what lay before him. To him, the words on the wall sounded less like a warning and more like a challenge. The crew finished their second day inside the crypt with heavy hearts. They had gathered much knowledge, but with each discovery came greater fear. The hum never left them, even as they returned to the ship. It seemed to echo in their heads, a reminder that they had crossed into a place that was not theirs. That night, while the crew tried to rest, Dallin sat awake in his bunk. His mind returned again and again to the wall of gold. He thought of the power it could give humanity, the strength it could bring against other races who doubted them. He thought of the glory he might earn if he was the first to touch it. The warnings of Myra echoed faintly in his ears, but the glow of the veins burned brighter in his imagination. And as the aurora floated quietly above the cracked asteroid, one thought would not leave his mind: what if the gold was waiting for someone brave enough to claim it? Captain Ryan stood alone in the command room, staring once more at the asteroid outside. He felt the unease in his chest growing stronger. Something inside him told him that the crypt was not just a resting place, but a test. A test of whether humanity would respect the past or awaken something better left in darkness. And though he did not know it, the choice was already beginning to form within his crew. The Aurora's crew returned to the crypt on the third day with heavier steps than before. None of them spoke much as they prepared their gear. The golden veins in the chamber haunted their thoughts, and the strange hum from the walls still rang faintly in their ears. Captain Ryan could feel the unease in every movement of his crew. He knew that fear was building among them, but he also knew they had to continue. Turning away now would leave them with more questions than answers. The chamber was exactly as they had left it, yet something felt different. The glow of the golden veins seemed stronger, and the air carried a faint warmth that had not been there before. The crew spread out as usual, scanning walls and recording symbols. Myra bent down to study new carvings she had missed, and Lyra checked the tunnels branching deeper into the asteroid. But Dalen's eyes never left the glowing wall where he had stood before. The pull of the gold was too strong. Each time he looked away, his gaze returned as if drawn by invisible strings. His heart beat faster, and a restless energy moved through his hands. He remembered Myra's translation, the warning about the dead rising if the gold was taken. He remembered Ryan's order to touch nothing. Yet another thought pushed all those warnings aside. What if the gold was a gift waiting to be claimed? What if the builders had left it behind for someone worthy? As the others worked, Dalen moved quietly toward the wall. His boots tapped lightly against the stone, but no one noticed. He placed his hand against the glowing surface. The warmth seeped into his skin, sending a shiver through his body. His breath quickened. It felt alive. He pressed harder, his fingers tracing the golden vein until he found a thin shard jutting out. Without another thought, he pulled. The shard broke free with a sharp crack. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. The hum that had filled the walls grew louder in an instant, shaking the air. The golden veins across the stone began to pulse rapidly, flashing like a heartbeat racing out of control. The ground beneath their feet trembled. Myra spun around, her eyes wide. "What have you done?" she cried. The bones scattered across the chamber rattled as if struck by unseen hands. Skulls rolled across the floor, and long skeletal arms shifted and rose. One by one, the bones began to assemble, clicking together with sharp cracks. A leg bone locked into a hip. A spine lifted from the dust. Skulls tilted upward, empty sockets glowing faintly with golden light. Sina stumbled back in fear. "They're moving." The crew watched in horror as the bones rose, forming into skeletal figures taller than any human. Golden veins ran through their frames, pulsing with the same light as the walls. They stood in silence for a moment, their empty sockets staring at the living intruders. Then, slowly, they stepped forward in unison. Ryan's voice cut through the panic. "Fall back to the center. Stay together." The crew obeyed, gathering near their captain. Dalen clutched the shard in his hand, its glow burning against his palm, but he dared not drop it. The skeletal guardians moved closer, their footsteps echoing against the stone like drum beats. They did not rush, nor did they strike, but their intent was clear. Myra's trembling voice broke through. The warning, it was true. The gold binds them. You freed it, Dalen, and now they rise to protect it. The guardians spread across the chamber, blocking the tunnels that led back to the surface. Their movements were not clumsy but precise, as though guided by ancient memory. The crew was trapped. "Ryan," Joran said, his hand on his tool, "if they attack, we cannot fight them. Our weapons will be useless." Ryan kept his eyes on the guardians, his face calm though his chest was tight. "Not yet," he said. "They are not striking. They are testing us." The golden light from the veins brightened again, filling the chamber with a strange glow. The hum in the walls became a deep vibration that shook their bones. It felt like a voice too ancient to understand, a voice that spoke through sound instead of words. Myra pressed her hand against one of the carvings on the wall, her eyes racing across the symbols. It says they are guardians. They protect the balance. The gold is life. To take more than is given is to awaken them." She turned to Ryan with fear in her eyes. "They want us to choose. To respect the balance or be destroyed." Dalen's face was pale as he stared at the shard in his hand. His earlier excitement had turned to dread. "I didn't mean. I just wanted to see if it was real." Ryan's voice grew sharp. "You have put us all in danger. Now we must find a way to fix it." The guardians stopped only a few steps away, forming a circle around the crew. Their glowing chests pulsed slowly, like hearts beating in unison. They did not raise weapons, but their silent presence was more threatening than any blade. For a long moment, no one moved. The air was heavy with fear. The crew's breath came fast, echoing inside their helmets. Even the smallest movement felt dangerous. Finally, Ryan stepped forward, his voice strong. "We are not thieves. We came only to learn. We will return what was taken." He reached out his hand toward Dallin. With shaking fingers, Dallin handed the shard to his captain. Ryan held it high so the Guardians could see. Then, slowly and carefully, he walked back to the wall where the shard had been pulled. He placed it against the vein, pressing it back into the stone. For a moment nothing happened. Then the golden light spread from the shard into the wall, pulsing warmly before settling into its natural glow. The Guardians did not move. Their empty sockets stared, their golden chests still glowing faintly. But the hum in the walls softened, growing quieter, calmer. The ground stopped trembling. "They are waiting," Myra whispered. "They are watching us." The crew held their breath as Ryan stepped back to join them. The Guardians did not attack, but neither did they return to the ground. They remained standing, as though waiting to see what choice the humans would make next. Ryan looked around at his crew. He could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. They had come seeking knowledge, not destruction. He knew they had to prove that to the Guardians, or none of them would leave the crypt alive. The chamber fell into silence again, broken only by the faint hum of the golden veins. The dead had awakened, and now humanity's true test had begun. The golden light filled every corner of the crypt, washing over the crew and the towering figures of bone and gold. The Guardians stood in a perfect circle around the humans, their empty eye sockets glowing faintly, their bodies unmoving yet filled with silent power. It felt as if time itself had slowed inside the chamber. No one dared to speak at first. Even the faint sound of breathing seemed too loud in that moment. Captain Ryan studied the Guardians carefully. He could feel the weight of their gaze, though they had no living eyes. They had risen to defend the gold, yet they had not attacked when the shard was returned. Instead, they waited. He understood then that this was not a mindless army. These were watchers, protectors that acted with reason as much as strength. "Hold your ground," Ryan said quietly to his crew. "Do not show fear, and do not show greed." Myra pressed closer to the carvings on the wall. Her eyes moved quickly over the symbols, searching for more meaning. Her voice was soft but urgent. "It says they were built to guard the balance. To test the hearts of those who enter. They will not strike without cause. They are waiting for us to reveal who we truly are." Lyra whispered, her hand near her sidearm though she knew it would be useless. "Then what do we do? Just stand here until they decide?" "No," Ryan said. His eyes stayed locked on the Guardians. "We must show them why we came. We came for knowledge, not for power. That must be clear." The Guardians shifted suddenly, their skeletal feet grinding against the stone floor. The circle around the crew tightened. The hum from the walls deepened, filling the air like the sound of 1,000 distant drums. The golden cores within the Guardians' chests pulsed in rhythm, glowing brighter as they stepped closer. Sina clutched her scanner nervously. "They're moving in." "Captain, if they mean to attack they are not attacking," Ryan said firmly, though his heart pounded in his chest. "They are testing us. Stand firm." The Guardians came to a halt only a few paces away. Their empty skulls tilted slightly, as if studying the humans. One lifted its bony arm and pointed toward the wall where the carvings glowed faintly. Another tapped its golden chest with a sharp clink. It was as if they were giving instructions in silence. Myra's eyes widened. "They want us to read. They want us to understand their message." Ryan nodded. "Then show them." Myra hurried to the wall. Her fingers traced the lines of the carvings while she spoke slowly. "This part, it speaks of their fall. Their world was dying, and they turned to the gold for strength. But the more they fed from it, the weaker they became, until only bones and guardians remained. They left this crypt behind as a lesson. They feared others would make the same mistake. The guardians stood still as she read, their golden light steady. It was as if they were listening, waiting to see how the humans would respond. Dallin shifted uneasily. His eyes darted between the glowing walls and the shard that had been replaced. His voice was low, filled with regret. I should not have touched it. I thought maybe it could help us. One of the guardians turned its skull toward him, the golden light in its chest pulsing brighter. Dallin stepped back, fear rising in his throat. But then the guardian did not move further. Instead, it lowered its arm and returned to stillness. It understands, Myra whispered. They know what we did. They know why. They judge our intent. Ryan stepped forward slowly, raising his voice so it echoed through the chamber. We came here not to steal, not to disturb. We came to learn. If this place is sacred, we will respect it. We ask only for knowledge, not for power. For a long moment, nothing happened. The hum in the walls continued, steady and deep. Then one guardian stepped forward. Its movements were slow, deliberate, filled with weight. The others did not stop it. Instead, they opened a narrow path in the circle for it to pass. The crew tensed as the guardian approached Ryan. Its towering frame loomed above him, the golden veins in its body glowing with a strange warmth. It lifted its hand and reached toward him. Ryan stood his ground, refusing to flinch. The bony hand stopped just inches from his chest, then lowered to the ground. With surprising gentleness, the guardian traced a circle on the stone floor and then stepped back. Myra hurried to study the markings. Her voice shook as she spoke. It is a symbol of choice. They are giving us a path. Either take the gold and face the cost, or leave it untouched and carry only their story. The guardians began to move again. Slowly, they returned to their circle, their empty sockets glowing faintly. They did not crumble back into bones, nor did they vanish. They simply waited, their bodies alive but silent, as though guarding the humans' decision. The crew gathered close, speaking in hushed voices. Joran shook his head. If we take nothing, then what have we gained? We will leave with empty hands. But alive, Sina reminded him quickly. Alive is enough. Dallin's face was troubled. But what if that gold could save our people one day? What if we walk away from the chance to give humanity the strength it needs? Myra pressed her hand against the carvings. Or what if we walk away with something greater than power? A warning. A lesson. A gift that no other race may have been trusted to carry. The crew turned to Ryan. Their voices fell silent, waiting for his decision. The guardians stood patient, their golden chests glowing faintly, as if they already knew the weight of the choice. Ryan's face was calm, but his mind raced. He saw the hunger in Dallin's eyes, the fear in Sina's, the curiosity in Myra's. He saw the guardians, silent and steady, watching without judgment but with expectation. At last, he spoke. We will not decide in haste. We will leave the crypt for now, return to the ship, and speak together. A choice like this must be made with care. The guardians did not move to stop them. They parted slowly, opening a path to the tunnel. The hum of the chamber softened, though the golden light still pulsed like the steady beat of a heart. As the crew stepped carefully through the path, each of them carried a different weight in their hearts: fear, hope, regret, and wonder. They did not know what choice they would make in the end. But they knew one truth with certainty. The guardians were not enemies. They were judges. And the humans had not yet passed their test. The crew of the Aurora returned to their ship with heavy silence. Each step back through the tunnel felt longer than the last, and when the hatch of the ship closed behind them, a deep breath of relief escaped every chest. Yet the relief did not last. The memory of the guardians standing in the glowing chamber, waiting for humanity's choice, stayed fixed in their minds. In the meeting room of the Aurora, Captain Ryan gathered everyone around a long table. The faint hum of the ship's engines was the only sound at first. Ryan's face was calm, but the lines on his brow showed the weight he carried. He looked at each of his crew in turn. "We stand at a point where our actions will decide not only our fate," he said slowly, "but perhaps how humanity is remembered among the stars. The Guardians gave us a choice. We must decide together." Myra leaned forward, her hands clutching the table. "The carvings told us clearly. The gold is not just metal. It is life to them. It gave strength to their people, but it also destroyed them. They created guardians to warn others. If we take it, we may repeat their mistake." Sina nodded quickly. "I agree. We should not touch it again. We leave it as it is. We take knowledge, not gold. That is the safe path." But Dallin's voice rose sharply. "Safe, yes. But safe is not enough. Do you not see what we found? Energy beyond anything our ships have ever known. If this gold can be controlled, it could power entire fleets. It could help us build colonies in places no other race dares to reach. It could protect us when others see us as weak." Joran rubbed his chin, torn between the two sides. "Dallin is not wrong. Humanity has many enemies. The galaxy is not kind to newcomers. If we leave this power untouched, others may one day find it and use it against us." Ryan listened without speaking. He wanted every voice heard. Lyra finally spoke, her tone steady but firm. "I believe the Guardians were not showing us treasure. They were showing us a test. If we grab for power, we prove we are no better than those who destroyed themselves. If we walk away, we prove restraint. That may be worth more than any weapon." The room fell quiet again. Each person turned inward, wrestling with their thoughts. Myra broke the silence. "When I studied the carvings, I saw something else. It was not only warning. It was hope. They wrote that the worthy may carry a gift, but only if they respect balance. Perhaps the Guardians will reward us with something, but only if we choose carefully." Dallin laughed bitterly. "A gift of words? That will not power ships, Myra." Ryan raised his hand to silence the argument. "Enough. We are divided, but we must not let division destroy us. We will return to the chamber tomorrow. Until then, we rest and we think. The choice must be clear in all our hearts." That night, the crew tried to sleep, but their minds burned with the weight of the decision. Dallin lay awake staring at the ceiling, his hand curled into a fist. He dreamed of ships flying with golden light, humanity rising strong and feared. Myra sat in her cabin writing notes, whispering translations of the symbols to herself as if the words might guide her. Sina prayed softly, asking that they not bring a curse upon themselves. Joran stared at his tools, wondering if science could tame something so ancient. Lyra looked out the window at the silent asteroid, her eyes filled with quiet determination. And Ryan, alone in his quarters, closed his eyes and listened. In his heart, he thought he could still hear the faint hum of the crypt, even though they were far above it. It was as if the crypt was speaking to him, waiting for him to decide. The next day, the Aurora's crew stepped once more into the chamber of gold and bones. The Guardians were still there, standing silent, their golden cores glowing faintly. They had not moved since the humans left. Their empty sockets turned as the crew entered, watching without judgment but with expectation. Ryan stood at the center of the chamber, his voice echoing against the walls. "We have come to answer." The Guardians shifted slightly, the hum of the crypt growing louder. The golden veins in the walls pulsed with brighter light. Ryan turned to his crew. "Speak your choice, so all may hear." One by one they spoke. Myra stepped forward first. "I choose respect. We leave the gold untouched. We carry only the lesson. Sina followed. I choose life. We cannot risk awakening more than we already have. Joran hesitated, then sighed. I see both sides, but I choose restraint. If we cannot understand it fully, we should not claim it. Lyra's eyes stayed fixed on the guardians as she spoke. I choose trust. If we walk away, perhaps they will give us something greater than we can imagine. At last Dallin stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice strong. I cannot agree. I choose to take the gold. Humanity needs strength, not lessons carved in stone. The chamber filled with silence. All eyes turned to Captain Ryan. His decision would break the tie. He looked at his crew, at the guardians, at the glowing veins across the stone walls. Then he spoke. I choose respect, Ryan said firmly. We will not take what is not ours. We will honor the warning and the lesson. That is our answer. The guardians lifted their arms together, their golden light blazing brighter than ever. The hum in the walls rose into a powerful sound that shook the chamber, yet it did not feel like anger. It felt like approval. The crew shielded their eyes as the light filled the crypt. When it faded, one guardian stepped forward. From its golden chest, it pulled a small fragment of glowing metal, unlike the shard Dallin had stolen. This piece pulsed softly, steady and calm. The guardian placed it on the ground before Ryan. Then it stepped back, its hollow sockets fixed on him. Myra whispered, her voice filled with awe. The gift, they have judged us worthy. Ryan bent down and picked up the fragment. It felt warm, not burning like before, but alive, as if it recognized his touch. He held it high, and the guardians lowered their arms in unison. The hum softened again, fading back into silence. The choice had been made. Humanity had been tested, and the crypt had offered its answer. The golden fragment pulsed gently in Captain Ryan's hand. Its glow was steady and calm, unlike the fierce burning of the shard Dallin had once taken. The crew of the Aurora stood in silence, watching as the guardians lowered their arms and returned to their still positions. The chamber seemed quieter now, but not empty. It was as if the walls themselves were watching. Ryan turned to his crew. This is no ordinary treasure, he said softly. It is something else. A message. A test. Myra stepped closer to study the fragment. Look at it. The carvings warned about greed, yet this piece feels alive. It is not a weapon. It is something meant to guide us. Dallin's eyes were sharp, filled with doubt. Or it is a trick. A small piece of power to keep us from taking more. What if the guardians want us weak while the real strength lies buried around us? Lyra shook her head firmly. No, Dallin. You saw what happened when you took the shard. It nearly destroyed you. This is different. This feels, offered. That changes everything. The fragment glowed brighter for a moment, as if it agreed with her. Sina's voice was soft but clear. Perhaps it will test us further. If we use it with care, it may open doors. If we misuse it, it may turn against us. Ryan nodded. Then our path is simple. We must discover its truth. But we do so together, and with respect. The crew carried the fragment back to the Aurora. As soon as they stepped inside the ship, the lights flickered, and the engines gave a low hum as if they recognized the presence of the fragment. The crew exchanged surprised looks. Did you feel that? Joran asked, gripping the wall. The ship responded. Ryan placed the fragment on the center table of the meeting room. It pulsed steadily, and with each pulse, the screens of the ship came alive with streams of symbols and patterns. Myra leaned over them, her hands moving quickly across the controls. It's giving us data, she said in amazement. Look. These symbols match the ones on the crypt walls. But they're changing, flowing into patterns I can read. It's like it's teaching us. Lines of ancient script turned into clear shapes on the screen. Energy diagrams, maps of stars, and designs of machines appeared before their eyes. Joran's voice trembled with awe. This is technology far beyond us. Energy drawn not from fuel, not from stars, but from balance itself. They called it the harmony core. It powered their world, but when used in greed, it consumed them. This fragment, it is a seed of that core. The crew fell into silence, the weight of the discovery pressing upon them. Dallin broke it with his restless voice. If this seed can power our ship, imagine what it could do for Earth. Imagine colonies with endless energy. Imagine fleets armed with this power. Humanity would no longer be looked down upon by the older races. Myra shook her head firmly. Did you not hear? Their people destroyed themselves with it. They fell because they did not respect balance. If we use it as you suggest, we would follow the same path. The crew argued late into the night, voices rising and falling, but Ryan listened more than he spoke. At last, he raised his hand for silence. We were given this fragment because we chose restraint. That was our test. Now we face another. Can we use what we've been given without falling to greed? That will decide whether we rise or fall. The crew nodded slowly. Even Dallin, though unwilling, lowered his head. The next day, Ryan ordered an experiment. Joran and Myra worked together in the engine room. They placed the fragment in a chamber designed to study unknown materials. As soon as it touched the chamber, the Aurora's systems lit with new energy. The engines hummed smoother than ever before. The lights grew brighter, yet used no fuel. The fragment pulsed calmly, as if it was breathing with the ship. Joran's face broke into a smile. It's stable. The energy flows through balance. The fragment adjusts to what the ship needs, not what we demand. It refuses greed. Myra added, if we overload it or try to force more power, it shuts down. It is teaching us restraint. The crew gathered to watch. Even Dallin was silent, his eyes wide as he realized the truth. This was not a tool of domination. It was a mirror, showing who they were. That night, as the Aurora floated silently above the asteroid, Ryan stood at the viewing window. The stars stretched endlessly, and the golden glow of the fragment reflected faintly in the glass. Lyra joined him. You chose well, Captain, she said quietly. They tested us, and we passed. Ryan shook his head. No. The test is not over. It never will be. The Guardians gave us this gift not to prove we are worthy once, but to see if we remain worthy every day we use it. Humanity will face this choice again and again. That is the true test. Lyra smiled faintly. Then we will carry the lesson with us. As long as we remember, we will not fail. The fragment pulsed softly behind them, its glow steady and calm. It seemed to hear their words, as if it approved. But in the shadows of the corridor, Dallin stood alone, his eyes fixed on the fragment. His mind burned with thoughts he could not silence. He had seen its power. He had seen the way it made the ship stronger, brighter, alive. And though the others spoke of restraint and balance, his heart whispered of strength and glory. He clenched his fist. The test was not finished. Not for him. White heavy check mark. That is part 6, the test of humanity, 1000 words, show. The Aurora drifted quietly above the ancient asteroid, its hull glowing faintly from the balance of the golden fragment within. For days, the crew had studied the energy and learned to respect its limits. Their journey had begun with a search for treasure, but now they carried something greater, a truth about power and restraint. Yet peace inside the ship was not complete. Dallin sat alone in his quarters, staring at the fragment's reflection on a small screen. The others spoke of wisdom, of balance, but his heart longed for strength. He imagined fleets of human ships powered by the fragment, standing against alien empires that looked down on Earth. He dreamed of humanity rising, not as wanderers but as rulers of the stars. But deep inside, he knew his dreams were touched by the same greed that destroyed the ancient race. Still, the desire would not leave him. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan gathered the crew in the meeting room. The fragment pulsed gently on the table between them. "We must decide," Ryan said firmly. "Do we take this fragment home, or do we leave it here where it belongs?" Sina's eyes softened. "If we bring it back, it could save lives. Imagine villages with endless light, colonies warmed through the darkest winters. We cannot ignore what it offers." Myra shook her head. "And yet, if it falls into the wrong hands, it could become a weapon. You saw what happened to Dallin when greed touched him. On Earth, there are many with greed far greater." Joran added quietly, "Maybe the Guardians gave it to us not to keep, but to show that humanity is ready to learn. Sometimes carrying knowledge is enough, even without the gift itself." The room grew silent. The fragment pulsed softly, steady as a heartbeat. Dallin leaned forward. "We can't waste this chance. With this seed, Earth could rise above the old powers. The alien councils mock us now, but this would change everything." Ryan met his eyes calmly. "And would we be any different from the ancients who destroyed themselves? The Guardians warned us, Dallin. This is not a gift of power. It is a reminder of choice." The tension in the room was sharp, but then Lyra spoke gently. "Perhaps the choice is not ours alone. Perhaps it belongs to all of humanity. We cannot decide for everyone. But we can decide how to present it. We can return with the story, with the lesson, and with proof that the crypt exists. That will guide our people to think wisely." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes. We carry back the truth, not the seed. That is the path." The crew agreed, though Dallin's jaw tightened in silence. Together they carried the fragment back into the crypt. The Guardians were waiting in silence, their forms unmoving like statues. Ryan stepped forward and held up the fragment. "We thank you," he said clearly. "You tested us, and we learned. But this gift is not ours to keep. It belongs here, where it will remain safe. What we will carry is the memory, the wisdom you shared." He placed the fragment gently on the altar where it had first pulsed in his hand. For a moment, the chamber was quiet. Then the Guardians lowered their heads in unison. The walls of the crypt glowed with golden light, brighter than ever before. The carvings shimmered as if alive, and a deep, resonant voice filled the air. "Humanity has chosen restraint. You honor the balance. The legacy is not the seed, but the wisdom carried in your hearts. Go now, children of Earth, and let your choices guide the stars." The light spread outward, rushing through the tunnels of the crypt, spilling into the open sky above the asteroid. The aurora shook as the energy pulsed through space, then faded, leaving the crypt dim once more. The Guardians returned to stillness, and the altar sealed itself, hiding the fragment forever. The crew walked back in silence, each of them carrying the weight of what they had seen. When the aurora left the asteroid, the stars stretched before them, endless and vast. The ship's engines glowed softly with ordinary power, yet their hearts felt brighter than any star. Days later, Ryan stood at the viewing deck. Lyra joined him, as she often did. "You chose well," she said. Ryan shook his head. "It was not just me. It was all of us. Even the struggle we faced, even Dallin's doubt, was part of the test. Humanity is not perfect, but we have the chance to learn." Behind them, Myra and Sina worked to record every detail of the crypt, its carvings, its lessons, its warnings. Joran mapped the star coordinates, so others could find the place if they dared. And Dallin stood apart, silent, his mind restless with thoughts he could not quiet. When the aurora finally returned to Earth, they were greeted with curiosity and questions. Many expected riches of gold, piles of treasure, or alien weapons. Instead, Ryan and his crew stood before the Council of Earth and shared the truth. He told them of the crypt of bones and gold, of the guardians who protected it, of the fragment that glowed with harmony, and of the warning etched into the walls. He told them how humanity had been tested, and how the lesson was restraint, not conquest. At first, many were disappointed. Some whispered that the Aurora had failed, that they had returned empty-handed. But others listened deeply, and their eyes grew thoughtful. The story spread across Earth and beyond. The legend of the hidden crypt became not a tale of lost treasure, but a tale of wisdom. Humanity began to ask new questions. Not how much power they could gain, but how they might rise without repeating the mistakes of others. And though not all agreed, the seed of the lesson had been planted. On quiet nights, Ryan thought of the golden fragment still pulsing deep within the crypt. He knew it would remain there for ages, waiting. Perhaps one day, another crew would stand before it, and their hearts would be tested. But for now, the Guardians had chosen humanity as worthy of a chance. And that chance, Ryan knew, was more valuable than all the treasure in the stars. As the Aurora prepared for its next journey, the crew stood together, stronger than before. They had entered the crypt as seekers of gold, but they left it as keepers of a greater legacy. The stars waited for them, endless and bright, and humanity's path stretched forward uncertain, but full of hope.